The next day I actually felt like eating. I wandered in for lunch to find Rosaline wearing a new dress and her hair freshly plaited. She was poking tissues into her bosom for safekeeping. "Where did you get that dress?" I said. She turned a circle, modeling it, and when I smiled, she turned another one. It was what you would call a tent dress, yards of material falling from her shoulders without benefit of waistband and darts. It had a bright red background with giant white flowers all over it. I could see she was in love with it. "August took me into town yesterday, and I bought it," she said. I felt startled suddenly by the things that had been going on without me. "Your dress is pretty," I lied, noticing for the first time there were no lunch fixings anywhere. She smoothed her hands down the front of it, looked at the clock on the stove, and reached for an old white vinyl purse of May's that she'd inherited. "You going somewhere?" I said. "She sure is," said August, stepping into the room, smiling at Rosaline. "I'm going to finish what I started," Rosaline said, lifting her chin. "I'm going to register to vote." My arms dropped to my sides, and my mouth came open. "But what about you being, you know?" Rosaline squinted at me. "What?" "A fugitive from justice," I said. "What if they recognize your name? What if you get caught?" I cut my eyes over at August. "Oh, I don't think there'll be a problem," August said, taking the truck keys off the brass nail by the door. "We're going to the voter drive at the Negro High School." "But, for heaven's sake, all I'm doing is getting my voter's card," said Rosaline. "That's what you said last time," I told her. She ignored that. She strapped May's purse on her arm. A split ran from the handle down onto the side. "You want to come, Lily?" asked August. I did, and I didn't. I looked down at my feet, tanned and bare. "I'll just stay here and make some lunch." August lifted her eyebrows. "It's nice to see you're hungry for a change." They went onto the back porch, down the steps. I followed them to the truck. As Rosaline got in, I said, "Don't spit on anybody's shoes, okay?" She let out a laugh that made her whole body shake. It looked like all the flowers on her dress were bobbing in a gust of wind. I went back inside, boiled 2 hot dogs, ate them without buns. Then I headed back to the woods, where I picked a few bachelor buttons that grew wild in the plots of sunshine before getting bored and tossing them away. I sat on the ground, expecting to sink down into my dark mood and think about my mother, but the only thoughts I had were for Rosaline. I pictured her standing in a line of people. I could almost see her practicing writing her name, getting it just right, her big moment. Suddenly I wished I'd gone with them. I wished it more than anything. I wanted to see her face when they handed her her card. I wanted to say, "Rosaline, you know what? I'm proud of you." What was I doing sitting out here in the woods? I got up and went inside. Passing the telephone in the hallway, I had an urge to call Zach. To become part of the world again. I dialed his number. When he answered, I said, "So, what's new?" "Who's this?" he said. "Very funny," I told him. "I'm sorry about everything," he said. August told me what happened. Silence floated between us a moment, and then he said, "Will you have to go back?" "You mean back to my father?" He hesitated. "Yeah." The minute he said it, I had the feeling that's exactly what would happen. Everything in my body felt it. "I suppose so," I said. I coiled the phone cord around my finger and stared down the hall at the front door. For a few seconds, I was unable to look away, imagining myself leaving through it and not coming back. "I'll come see you," he said, and I wanted to cry. Zach knocking on the door of T. Ray Owen's house. It could never happen. "I asked you what was new, remember?" I didn't expect anything was, but I needed to change the subject. "Well, for starters, I'll be going to the White High School this year." I was speechless. Squeezed the phone in my hand. Are you sure you want to do that? I said. I knew what those places were like. Somebody's got to, he said. Might as well be me. Both of us, it seemed like, were doomed to misery. Rosaline came home, a bona fide registered voter in the United States of America. We all sat around that evening, waiting to eat dinner, while she personally called every one of the daughters on the telephone. I just wanted to tell you I'm a registered voter, she said each time. And there would be a pause, and then she'd say, President Johnson and Mr. Hubert Humphrey, that's who. I'm not voting for Mr. Pisswater. She laughed every time, just like this was the joke of jokes. She would say, Goldwater, Pisswater, get it? This went on even after dinner. Just when we think she had it out of her system, out of the complete blue, she'd say, I'll be casting my vote for Mr. Johnson. When she finally wound down and said goodnight, I watched her climb the stairs wearing her red and white voter registration dress, and I wished again that I'd been there. Regrets don't help anything, August had told June. You know that. I ran up the stairs and grabbed Rosaline from behind, stopping her with one foot poised in the air, searching for the next step. I wrapped my arms around her middle. I love you, I blurted out, not even knowing I was going to say this. That night, when the katydids and the tree frogs and other musical creatures were wound up and going strong, I walked around the honey house, feeling like I had spring fever. It was 10 o'clock at night, and I honestly felt like I could have scrubbed the floors and washed the windows. I went over to the shelves and straightened all the mason jars, then took the broom and swept the floor, up under the holding tank and the generator, where nobody had swept for 50 years, it looked like. I still wasn't tired, so I stripped the sheets off my bed and went over to the pink house and got a set of clean ones, careful to tiptoe around and not wake anybody up. I got dust rags and comet cleanser in case I needed them. I came back, and before I knew it, I was involved in a full-blown cleaning frenzy. By midnight, I had the place shining. I even went through my stuff and got rid of some old things. Old pencils, a couple of stories I'd written that were too embarrassing for anybody to read. A torn pair of shorts, a comb with most of its teeth missing. Next, I gathered up the mouse bones that I kept in my pockets, realizing I didn't need to carry them around anymore. But I knew I couldn't throw them away either, so I tied them together with a red hair ribbon and set them on the shelf by the fan. I stared at them a minute, wondering how a person got attached to mouse bones. I decided sometimes you just need to nurse something. That's all. By now I started to get tired, but I took my mother's things out of the hat box, her tortoiseshell mirror, her brush, the poetry book, her whale pen, the picture of us with our faces together, and set them up on the shelf with the mouse bones. I have to say, it made the whole room look different. Drifting off to sleep, I thought about her, how nobody is perfect, how you just have to close your eyes and breathe out and let the puzzle of the human heart be what it is. The next morning, I showed up in the kitchen with the whale pen fastened to my favorite blue top. A Nat King Cole record was going. Unforgettable, that's what you are. I think it was on to drown out all the commotion the Pink Lady Kenmore washer was making on the porch. It was a wondrous invention, but it sounded like a cement mixer. August sat with her elbows on the tabletop, drinking the last of her coffee and reading another book from the bookmobile. When she lifted her eyes, they took in my face, then went straight to the whale pen. I saw her smile before she went back to her book. I fixed my standard Rice Krispies with raisins. After I finished eating, August said, "Come on out to the hives. I need to show you something." We got all decked out in our bee outfits. At least I did. August hardly ever wore anything but the hat and the veil. Walking out there, August widened her step to squashing, to miss squashing an ant. It reminded me of May. I said, "It was May who got my mother started saving roaches, wasn't it?" "Who else?" she said and smiled. "It happened when your mother was a teenager. May caught her killing a roach with a fly swatter. She said, 'Deborah Fontenelle, Like every living creature on the earth is special. You want to be the one that puts an end to one of them? Then she showed her how to make a trail of marshmallows and graham crackers. I fingered the whale pen on my shoulder, picturing the whole thing. Then I looked around and noticed the world. It was such a pretty day you couldn't imagine anything coming along to spoil it. According to August, if you've never seen a cluster of beehives first thing in the morning, you've missed the eighth wonder of the world. Picture these white boxes tucked under pine trees. The sun will slant through the branches, shining in the sprinkles of dew drying on the lids. There would be a few hundred bees doing laps around the hive boxes, just warming up, but mostly taking their bathroom break, as bees are so clean they will not soil the inside of their hives. From a distance, it'll look like a big painting you might see in a museum, but museums can't capture the sound. 50 feet away, you'll hear it, a humming that sounds like it came from another planet. At 30 feet, your skin will start to vibrate. The hair will lift on your neck. Your head will say, "Don't go any farther," but your heart will send you straight into the hum, where you will be swallowed by it. You will stand there and think, "I am in the center of the universe, where everything is sung to life." August lifted the lid off a hive. "This one is missing its queen," she said. I learned enough beekeeping to know that a hive without a queen was a death sentence for the bees. They would stop work and go around completely demoralized. "What happened?" I said. "I discovered it yesterday. The bees were sitting out here on the landing board looking melancholy. If you see bees loafing and lamenting, you can bet their queen is dead. So I searched through the combs, and sure enough, she was gone. I don't know what caused it. Maybe it was just her time." "What do you do now?" I called the county extension, and they put me in touch with a man in Goose Creek who said he'd drive over a new queen sometime today. I went to get the hive re-queened before one of the workers starts laying. If we get laying workers, we've got ourselves a mess. "I didn't know a worker bee could lay eggs," I said. "All they can do really is lay unfertilized drone eggs. They'll fill up the combs with them, and as the workers naturally die off, there are none to replace them." As she lowered the lid, she said, "I just wanted to show you what a queenless colony looks like." She lifted back the veils from her hat, then lifted mine back too. She held my gaze while I studied the gold flecks in her eyes. "Remember when I told you the story of Beatrice?" she said, "the nun who ran away from her convent? Remember how the Virgin Mary stood in for her?" "I remember," I said. "I figured you knew I'd run away like Beatrice did. You were trying to tell me that Mary was standing in for me at home, taking care of things till I went back." "Oh, that's not what I was trying to tell you at all," she said. "You weren't the runaway I was thinking about. I was thinking about your mother running away. I was just trying to plant a little idea in your head." "What idea?" "That maybe Our Lady could act for Deborah and be like a stand-in mother for you." The light was making patterns on the grass. I stared at them, feeling shy about what I was going to say. "I told Our Lady one night in the pink house that she was my mother. I put my hand on her heart the way you and the daughters always do at your meetings. I know I tried it that one time before and fainted, but this time I stayed on my feet, and for a while after that, I really did feel stronger. Then I seemed to lose it. I think what I need is to go back and touch her heart again." August said, "Listen to me now, Lily. I'm going to tell you something I want you to always remember, all right?" Her face had grown serious, intent. Her eyes did not blink.